When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download a Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind to Raw. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting back in Toronto, back to 3-hour Raws, and we are ready to go. How are you, Wai?
Doing all right. Yeah, not so bad. How are you?
I'm doing well. I will say, I much prefer the 4 and under hour driving trip than something that involves an airplane, a layover, multiple time zones. I mean, this was a piece of cake travel wise, I've got to say.
Yeah. It was a lot actually simpler than I was expecting. So I don't know how many places we're able to go to at 4 hours and under that might be holding a significant wrestling event in our future. But sure,
You're not holding your breath for WrestleMania Ottawa.
I don't think that's happening, and I think that might be a little over 4 hours.
That's give or take, depending on your that's our limit. You know, you go to Montreal, forget it. We're not going. That's too far. 4 hours is our limit. So you come to us and we'll moderately come to you. That's the post wrestling travel schedule. But a lot of fun this weekend. We had lots up on the site. If you want to go check it out, we did a road trip podcast for Cafe members on Friday night, and then back with a SummerSlam review very late on Saturday night after SummerSlam. And we also have interviews up on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel, currently ones with Shayna Baszler and Ricochet, and we will have some more coming out in the days to follow. So you can look forward to those that we conducted at the WWE Media Day. And yes, it was a great trip to Detroit. We got to meet a lot of listeners, and I believe the most random one was as I was furiously trying to get to the baseball game to get my ticket, and a guy walked by just by himself and just said, "Good job." And I assumed it, like I am a little vain. I assumed he knew who I was, or he could have been completely mistaken and maybe thought I was, the backup shortstop. I have no idea, but it was a very and I had my headphones on too, and I was just,
wow.
Thanks, and kept going.
Just good job in
shout out
life.
that guy. I'm all for brevity.
Right. Okay. Well, good job. I'd like to echo his statement. In whatever you're doing, the way you just sip that coffee, the way you dress today, John. Just good job in general.
Yeah, I've realized I've done just a number to my system, so I've gotten into the habit. People, I'm going to reveal this. I usually drink decaf coffee at night. You might realize it if you're a viewer of these shows. So last night I got back. I just didn't feel it, and I slept so terribly. I slept like when you have drank like real coffee and then you just sleep terribly as a result of the caffeine.
I don't. That doesn't happen.
Does that ever happen to you?
Not really. Not to me, but I can understand. Sure. Yeah.
I've occasionally had like Starbucks like late at night, and that's just a nightmare. But anyway, so I didn't drink any decaf coffee on Sunday night, and my body was like, God knows what I've done to myself, but it was just like I had the opposite effects, as though I had been drinking caffeine. Is that weird?
So you're saying the decaf had the effect of caffeinated coffee?
I'm saying there's still caffeine in decaf. There is it's just a minimum amount, and the fact I did not have any, I feel like it just played a trick on my system.
Interesting. So so maybe it's not so much the coffee, it's something else.
Yeah. I'm looking at my list here. We have a lot of stuff to talk on. So we're going to park this one and we're just going to move on because I know it's not the most engaging discussion.
That's fine with me. Sure.
I have a lot of topics to discuss with you. We'll go over the schedule before Raw, but I want to go into a catch up because we were focused on what was happening in Detroit, but there was a lot of different wrestling going on. One match I know you watched and I have since watched, that was the parking lot brawl on Rampage on Friday night. It was the second parking lot fight that AEW had done. The first one being all the way back in 2020 with the Best Friends and Santana and Ortiz, a very well-remembered match. This thing was like insane. And I say that in the best possible way, that like this was shot the day after Moxley and Trent did this anything goes match. They head on over to Daly's place to do this. This was like the most incredible like movie fight scene. And I don't know if they had any pause in the action here, but my God, was this thing just it blew me away of just what it was and what they pulled off here. And I feel it was just fell through the cracks of the weekend, this parking lot brawl.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think they have a lot to live up to with any of their like quote unquote sort of branded match types, especially when that was, I would consider like a legacy match of AEW Dynamite. I mean, they presented it as such in the sort of a 200 episode recap, right? So they certainly had a lot to live up to. And when you throw in Jon Moxley into the mix, things are going to get that much more violent and bloody. What I didn't so much expect was how much Trent, guy with like fused neck, how much he was willing to take, and it was certainly at the point where I was like concerned. I hope they somehow worked this car windshield glass, because God, like they took some bad punishment on these cars.
I want to have faith that the glass was gimmicked. I hope that's the legacy of Bill Goldberg, that you always gimmick glass in vehicles, but. I mean, for what this was, and this isn't going to be for everybody, just the violence of this. I mean, that's what was advertised, and it was what was delivered. And we had the incorporation of Sue's van. I mean, just some of the moments here, the giant swing into the huge trash bin, the curb stomp. They ripped the door off of Sue's van, and then there was a curb stomp onto the door. Like, it was just one thing after the other. I mean, it was... I thought it was totally captivating for what it was.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I say this with like the most like praise is, did this belong on Rampage? Like, I feel this would have been more impactful if this had been, I just think that here we are on a Monday, and I don't even know if this really reached a ton of people's radar. Although the number was up on Friday, this definitely did draw in male viewership.
So, I mean, we spent a lot of time on these airwaves complaining about the lack of relevant content on Rampage, and
not anymore.
We just don't even talk about Rampage whatsoever, right?
On Rampage, I would think this is almost a.
I just don't think we should be complaining all of a sudden when they do give us, matches worth talking about and worth watching on Rampage. It's not dissimilar to, I think, what I felt was a very good edition of Collision this past weekend, because they gave us a lot of like relevant content, stuff that was worth watching, even if most of us were watching SummerSlam at the time. I think the ability to go back and to be able to say, I wish I watched this show, is really important to the reputation of especially something like Rampage right now.
Perhaps. I mean, it's still an hour of programming, and you would want, in your negotiations, like Rampage is still part of that mix. And this was going to be a very tough weekend to cut through all that was going on. But this was, listen, if you're not for these crazy violent affairs, this might not be up your alley. But for what this was, I thought this was right on par with the first one. I thought it was just to watch this, that they probably had how many hours to prepare for this. Like, this was like
this was the day after they took tax, by the way.
This is the day after that anything goes match, where like how much notice they had that they were doing, because we did see Moxley get pulled from the Pro Wrestling Revolver show several days earlier. So I'm imagining he had a couple days heads up that we're doing this parking lot brawl. But these guys are all coming together, and to put this together, like, this is every bit like your climactic movie scene. And it was like, God knows how long it was. The shoot was. We saw like 20 minutes or so of it on television, but it was insane. Yeah. Coming out of a Collision on Saturday, we have a bit more clarity on All In with the challenge made by Samoa Joe to CM Punk that their legacy cannot end with a roll up, and thus issuing the challenge. I don't know why Punk won this Owen Hart.
I mean, that's the thing, like, yeah, okay, promo from Joe, like, fine, but God, would this story have been so much better if he beat CM Punk in the Owen tournament, because Punk didn't win the tournament anyway. You could have had Joe versus Starks, and Starks, gone on. What they could have found a way to get Starks. It could have worked. I just think it's so much more important to retain this 20-year like obstacle that CM Punk hasn't overcome, and for it to just kind of be deflated in a pretty, at this point, forgettable like 1 week affair between the two in an effort to try to build up to this big match at Wembley. I don't know if it calls to, like, it makes me ask if Punk versus Joe was supposed to be the plan at Wembley, or if there was any plan for Wembley for Punk.
I think you could have got to this same spot where it's like Punk and Starks in the semifinal, and you get to Punk like sneaks by Starks instead of doing the cheating gimmick, and then Starks goes, he is eliminated, and you just go with Joe winning this thing. I don't think Ricky Starks winning this Owen Hart Cup has, it has not changed this story one iota. Like him having this thing, it's not like he walks around with this belt. It's I just think like the money in this is Punk getting that win, and he's got that win now. Anyway, and then FTR challenging the Young Bucks as well. That, it's essentially, here is this 8-year story, or however long that they have been attached since the Fuck the Revival began. And it's a rubber match. They've each won one match. Their last one was Boston after last year's Mania, and they're going into Wembley, and it's going to be who is the best tag team.
Yeah. If both these matches come to fruition, I would say they qualify as like big matches for a show on the scale of an All In. I though do have like criticisms about maybe what feels like a lack of story in the weeks leading up to these announcements. Both of these, I mean, even the Punk Joe one, just, yes, they had that match beforehand, but there was nothing afterwards that really told you that they were building towards this rematch. I felt like Punk and Joe were pretty much divorced after the Owen Hart tournament match, and certainly the same goes for FTR and the Bucks. So when were these matches put together? And ultimately, does that matter? Do people just want to have attractive matches on paper for something like this?
I think largely it's that. I mean, it's not like there's no story here. It's just
there are stories with any team, John. Like with any pairing between FTR and any other like team here. But did you take the effort to lead the audience down those paths in the weeks leading up to it? All I'm asking is, were there plans for this card and All In, and were they set in months in advance, or was this like a late put together sort of like series of matches?
In the case of the Bucks and FTR, I really don't see it being any kind of problem with people. Like if you had 4 weeks of promos back and forth, I mean, you're going to get that over these next 3-4 weeks. But I understand where you're coming from, and that's not an All-In issue. That is a form of storytelling that Tony Khan does do, where it's stuff that might have transpired over months, and in this case years, that when it's announced, like, you connect all the dots, but it's not your traditional week 1, week 2, week 3, and then the match is week 4. And and there's good and bad to that as well. But it's certainly this All-In card. It is those top 3 matches. I don't think anyone's complaining about those 3 matches. I will say, I definitely, as we were discussing over the weekend, the idea of this Ricky Steamboat involvement, I kind of talked myself into this idea of Steamboat somehow playing a role in this match on Saturday and somehow coming out of it the heel, and CM Punk wants to wrestle Ricky Steamboat at All In, and you get your WrestleMania 3 tie-in. And Steamboat, I don't know if Steamboat could do a singles match, but we saw last year he can do a 6-man and be at least if you had that in there.
To draw the connection, I suppose, to WrestleMania 3, why? Like, because this is breaking that record? Is that the idea?
Because I think you're looking for special things on this show. And to me, if you were to do somehow Ricky Steamboat on one side, and then you've got Punk with his team on the other, like if you had, anyway, it's not happening.
It's not happening. I also feel like at this point, like, just like with the Rob Van Dam, like Jack Perry match, I kind of feel like those nostalgia acts are better reserved for TV. Like they might be good enough matches, but I think the standard should be a lot higher for an AEW pay-per-view. And
Grado, you're happy with?
I'm not happy with that whatsoever. No, not at all.
Well, this coming Saturday, they are going to have CMFTR challenging the House of Black for the trios titles. That'll be in Greensboro, and I would think they they have Steamboat on this show, given it's Greensboro, and you did do the angle at the end of the show that sort of necessitates him coming back for at least, I would say, one more week.
Maybe it's Starks versus Steamboat. Maybe that's what they're building to.
Yeah, that's always a possibility as well. And as I mentioned, lots of things happening over this weekend. You had Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. You had a UFC card. You had, as we mentioned, a Collision with Rampage. But I don't want Impact Wrestling to get forgotten over this weekend, because while we were in Detroit, if there was one segment I was told I need to go back and watch, it is the resurrection of Eric Young, which was described to me. But boy, sitting down and watching this, it did not prepare me for maybe the greatest segment of all time. Wai, did you have time to watch this?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes. Under your advisement, I did take the time, and I'm very glad I did.
Okay. Number one, when they were going into Slammiversary and it was just the mystery partner for Scott D'Amore, who will replace PCO, this is how the Go Home show should have ended. Okay. This is how the Go Home show should have ended, and revealed who the partner was. So to get everyone up to speed that are not watching Impact, when Eric Young left the company the last time, what they did was his main disciple, Cody Deaner, was pretty much ascending into the role to take over the design. And by doing that, he had to get rid of the leader who he had been feuding with in Eric Young. So it comes down to this prison scene where they meet, and Deaner proceeds to shank Eric Young. And we are left with the conclusion that Eric Young has been murdered by Deaner in this prison. And that is how Eric Young was written off. Turns out he requested and received his release from WWE, and he came back to life at Slammiversary. And this was like the big question of, wait a minute, this guy was killed the last time we saw him, and led to like the legit greatest backstage interview of all time with Gia Miller pointing out, you're not dead, so what's going on? It's a great question, Gia. It's a fair question. And Eric Young secured footage of what happened in the prison. So what I'm going to say is that the next time, we have nothing to stand on when it ever comes to the invisible camera, okay? Because this just was incomprehensible that we had an accomplice here, an accessory here to this crime that shot this beautiful HD footage and got close-ups of Eric Young. And then unless it must have just been a drone maybe that followed him out of this prison and over on his motorcycle.
I think whereas AEW certainly takes one philosophy about maybe trying to convince us of the reality of like these sort of backstage skits. Impact really takes it the complete opposite direction. They are, and I think for a long time have not shied away from these sort of like, I hate to throw the word around, but like cinematics, cinema type of backstage segments. And
they really did put the stamp on those with the going back to the final deletion and everything like that. And they did, listen, when Impact was on its deathbed, that final deletion stuff was a morsel of life into that company when that happened in 2016. So, I mean, listen, they are something so different that I feel they, like, there is, I always applaud being different. But I look at this, and this is, to me, like, I saw almost no reaction to this. So I don't know what that says about the fact that are people desensitized to this, or is this just a case of Impact is so below the radar that are not even watching this? Because this would be World War III online if WWE did this angle, AEW did this angle. But it requires you to sit back as Eric Young gets onto his motorcycle. And not since Jeff Hardy have we got such an in-depth inner monologue than Eric Young reflecting on what has happened. Life, death, total opposites, but one can't exist without the other. What is it to die? What is it to live? Can you die if you've never truly lived? Is death final? Then why are we so scared of it? Is it because in the end, death truly is the unknown? Death is inevitable. It's the end game, the curtain call, the last thing any of us will know. Death can be a gateway. Death can be a reward. Death can be beautiful. But I ain't fucking dead yet. I've lived 1,000 lives during my time in this business. And if I have it my way, I'm going to live 1,000 more. A man can be killed. A body can be disposed of. Flesh, it can be removed. But an idea is eternal. An idea can live forever. I'm more than a name, more than life, more than death. I am an idea, and I will live forever.
Mm-hmm. So,
segment of the year.
Where do I start? This inner monologue felt like the scene in Billy Madison where he goes on this giant tirade in this academic decathlon, and the person responds by saying, "What you just said was absolute nonsense, and we are all dumber for having heard it." This felt like they had to write themselves out of this hole of a character, essentially dying. And what they came up with was a lot of words. It probably sounded really good if you weren't paying attention, but thank you for captioning it, John, because it made, sense to somebody, I suppose. But I
think he should get like a tattoo on his back of the. Actually, there's no room on his back for this. Actually, if you see, he's pretty inked up.
Yeah. I give them a whole lot of credit for trying to explain how somebody can come back from the dead, because I don't.
There are points for at least addressing this, as opposed to he's just
they
back
ended the
and
show
we're just
with
going to ignore this.
This is the main event. Like they ended the show.
This the whole show was built around this.
I appreciate the level of production. I appreciate the fact that they're willing to play, and they're willing to just like take risks. And this is certainly risk, and I don't know if it garners like positive press for Impact, or if it's another one of those things that you just kind of point and laugh. But they have to do different things. They have to get people talking somehow.
I don't think they should be shooting for indifference. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think if you're gonna go something like this, go all the way. Generate this discussion from people. I think that's a win for Impact if that's what you're talking about. Like, this is a show that at best is being watched by 150,000 viewers on a Thursday night on Access. Like, this is not Impact is not near the viewership of Women of Wrestling. Like, when you think about it, like, Women of Wrestling is just what a mystery this show is. It is watched by so many more people. And to this day, I have never gotten a tweet, an email, any form of reaction to this show.
Are the people watching it not your traditional wrestling fans that might be listening to a podcast like this?
I don't know who these people are, Wai. I don't know who they are, but it's a significant enough number.
Yeah. Okay. I hope they follow up on this somehow. I feel like a lot of
this brought you back in. This has got you watching Impact.
If they get more ridiculous, yeah, why not? Hey, like, we were probably saying the same thing about the final deletion, weren't we?
No, that was pretty. I recall everyone like applauding, like it was dumb, but it won everyone over by, I would say, like 5 minutes into that thing. Like, it was really well done, and it was definitely attention sorely needed for Impact at the time. Sonya Deville has suffered a torn ACL. This was first reported by TMZ, and WWE. They put out a. Not only did Sonya Deville post a video confirming this, but WWE posted a graphic with the text "as broken by TMZ." So I'm wondering if WWE will do the same when like wrestling news outlets break news. Are they going to have a graphic and credit the source? Is that going to happen in the future?
Only if they leak it to that source.
Well, Sonya Deville, she suffered this torn ACL in that tag match from 2 weeks ago on July 28th, teaming with Chelsea against Charlotte and Bianca Belair on SmackDown. And she just stated she's going to be out for an extended period, a torn ACL. She's having surgery on Tuesday. So that's going to be months and months that she will be out if it's a fully torn ACL. So you're looking probably 6 to 8 months. Now, did I miss it? They never addressed this on the show tonight.
They did.
Did they? Okay, then I missed it. What did they say about the titles? Or did they just acknowledge the injury?
They acknowledged the injury, and I think they said, "Well, it remains to something to the effect of remains to be seen what happens to Chelsea in the titles." They did not explicitly say that like they strip her of the championship or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. She did state in the video that she will be back sooner rather than later. Unless this was a, I don't
think that means anything. That probably just means like, I'll be back before you know it, type of like.
Well, then why wouldn't you just announce like the titles are vacant, or they've had time to figure this out? This happened weeks ago.
Did it happen weeks ago? When was the match?
July 28th was the injury.
Oh, okay.
Well, not weeks, a week. They've had 1 week.
I mean, maybe they wanted a proper, announcement. I don't know.
I don't think anyone's holding with bated breath.
I think there are questions now of whether or not these championships will come back at all. I mean,
I think they've received so much blowback. I don't think they want that.
I don't think so. I think there's so much criticism about how poorly handled these championships have been from day one. And it's beyond that, the division, we were asking, okay, once Sonya and Chelsea won these belts, who is there for them to face to win it? You got Casey and Katana Carter. Caden Carter. Who else?
We got the return of Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell tonight. That's doubling your division.
Crazy. They're on fire right now. I mean, it's just they have put.
Where's Nikki Cross? Where's Piper Niven? Where's Tegan Knox? Where all these women go?
Yeah, we're Kaylee Ray and Alba Fire. The list goes on. They put zero effort into building this division. And if you're not going to take it seriously, then I think we'd all be better off not having them. I would hate for that to happen. I would much prefer them to actually take them seriously. This could pose an opportunity for them to completely refresh it and to take it seriously, but nothing they've done has given me that optimism.
Yeah, I certainly obviously it's terrible for Sonya Deville. I also feel for Chelsea Green, who has had her own laundry list of injuries, and then they were starting off her program with Carmella, and then of course Carmella got pregnant. You moved over to this, and these two, for everyone you wanted to say, they found a chemistry, they had a role on the show, and again an injury, this one outside of her own injury, it just kind of affects her role on Raw as well. So it just I mean, Sonya even joked these titles being cursed, and I guess that continues. So anyway, hopefully as speedy a recovery as possible for Sonya Deville. WWE, they put out a press release going over some notes for SummerSlam. They listed the gate at $8.5 million. So that would be their largest non-WrestleMania gate in the promotion's history. It topped Clash at the Castle from last year in Cardiff. They also stated that sponsorship revenue was the largest for a non-Mania event, citing $7 million in sponsorships between among the clients, Slim Jim, Rocket Mortgage, and that big C4 money that they pumped into them. Now, tonight on Raw, I thought that was I thought we were getting some kind of Mike's Hard Lemonade tie-in with Becky Lynch just randomly drinking all this lemonade.
I mean, it wasn't so random. It was in reference to, I think, her social media tweets over the weekend, where she tweeted something about making lemons out of lemonade as she was squeezing lemons at home.
I'm not aware of any of this.
Yeah, as almost
what this lemonade was about.
It was just kind of her way of almost protesting to the audience, or at least giving the impression that she's protesting her match not being on the show.
The match wasn't canceled though. Paul Levesque said so.
Levesque actually even made reference to the lemonade line at the press conference. So it became a bit of a thing, and this was all it was. But yeah, It would have been a great position to do the Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Okay. Well, that's why you're here, way to keep me up to speed on the social media happenings. Also, it was the most watched SummerSlam of all time on Peacock, which is not surprising since last year's show on Peacock. It's grown by 8 million subscribers. So they also have that many more million subscribers that have access to Peacock. And among the top 3 most watched WWE events on Peacock, which would be interesting if they separate this year's WrestleMania, for instance. Is that 2 separate events and this would be 3, or do they just categorize WrestleMania as one thing and it would be behind something else? But nonetheless,
whatever sounds the best.
I guess so. I mean, so there you have it. And yeah, the last figure that WrestleTix had put out was 51,477 tickets distributed. And later this year, WWE will put out their key performance indicators. We'll also get Polestar data. But anyway, for those that are focused on the 59,000 number, WWE will reveal it themselves. So then you can. It's amazing the arguments you get over attendance when WWE themselves like put out the accurate info later in the year.
So, I mean, by all accounts, with this promotion, with the All In, I mean, you have, talents right now, and I think their own advertising publicly stating something around the vicinity of like 80,000, maybe 80 plus, which by all accounts will look like a legitimate number, right, John?
Yeah.
And do we know, like, does AEW inflate their pay-per-view attendance or their attendance figures like to the media? Have they done that in the past? And do you think
they've been nothing like this? Like it's fairly like in line to the point that when you figure in combo sales, like when they've had the like back-to-back nights, or as well like suite figures, it's like it's a reasonable enough that it's a viable number. Like you are not going to be seeing it come out that Wembley's really like 65 and it's 80. Like like WrestleTix is like a third-party outlet. We will get the Polestar data at some point as well, which is like an industry trade.
So there's a very good chance. I mean, the promotion of this event is the biggest wrestling event of all time, or something to that effect. And it looks like they'll be banking on a real figure to make that claim.
For tickets distributed, like they are going to reach that. I mean, they are right around like 80,000, and that is like right in the vicinity of what that WrestleMania 32 was, like the real like turnstile number.
Well, do you find it interesting that they're going to be using their legitimate number as a way to say this is more than, what WWE has famously given as, their sort of flub numbers? Like, do you find that philosophy interesting? And do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, this like their numbers,
WWE's response, like if there is one.
I don't see them acknowledging it in any way. Like I don't see WWE putting out like some press release to put out their work numbers being ahead of this number. Like this tops like the legit numbers that WWE has done for some of their biggest WrestleManias. And yeah, it will be interesting to see if WWE continues to push for this like big Wembley card at some point for a WrestleMania, and to what extent. Like I don't feel they're losing sleep over bragging rights to the point that they would go and
do you know who's in charge of this company still?
I do know, but what I'm saying is, would I see them offsetting a WrestleMania site fee to go to London for zero site fee just to accomplish this?
No, I don't think so either. No, maybe not at this point. But it's more so just like, the sort of like, I don't know, egotistic bragging rights of like being able to say my number is bigger than your number. I'm just trying to think like, can they even play that game? Because their fake numbers are larger than AEW's legitimate number, but AEW will be able to say our legitimate number is bigger than your legitimate number. So like, I just don't even know what WWE's defense would be in that argument.
Not when you have their own investment documents that reveal what their numbers are. I mean, it's not even something.
It's not like they're going to come out and say, well, our legit number is this much. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked, but it's an interesting conversation.
Let's talk a bit about the G1. We're going into the final week of the tournament. So the A block and B block are all figured out. The A block was won by Sonata, which we knew going into the weekend, but it was the fight for second place, with Hikuleo emerging as the second place finisher with 8 points. And somewhat surprisingly, Kaito Kiyomiya out after losing what I thought was a terrific match with Ren Narita that saw the two draw upon their mentors. You had Narita using like Inoki spots. You had Kiyomiya channeling Masawa. And it was a really good match between them, but it was Ren Narita getting the big win. So the main event of the show, the main event in Osaka, was Hikuleo against Shota Umino, which is the match it came down to. And Hikuleo won and thus finishes with 8 points, and he advances.
A real big surprise. I think for a lot of us expecting to see Kaito Kiyomiya to meet Kazuchika Okada in one of the playoff stages here. Giving the spot to Hikuleo instead. I mean, this whole tournament I think has been about building, and certainly A block has been about building new talent. I guess a lot of us just didn't necessarily see Hikuleo taking that step up above, the Three Musketeers, nor Kaito Kiyomiya or or even a Gabe Kidd. So
now that the A block is done, how effective do you think this was in building new stars?
I think
is anyone coming out of this A block with an extra edge, some kind of momentum, or has stood out in terms?
For me, it's Gabe Kidd. I mean, he went from, I would say, relative unknown, and non-player in a New Japan scene to somebody that I really enjoyed. I think for the rest of them, like, it's been good to at least get them on a bigger stage. A lot of instances for people to kind of watch them perform. The time limit draws, I think, kind of became mini headline stories themselves. But again, like with the three of them, the Three Musketeers, I sense like this is very much a long game with them, and to start them off without any sort of significant result, I don't think is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this one because I think it's I understand that thinking, and I wouldn't want to like throw these guys into the fire and there's that rejection, but I also feel like they've been on the come up, and I can understand, like, and Ghetto is more of a, I can't even say he's someone that always subscribes to the long game, because as we've seen, when he's ready for somebody, he pulls the trigger pretty quick. And you look at the Three Musketeers, and we're coming out of this, and it's it's a longer story. And then we look at Kiyomiya, and everyone figured his involvement here was to all roads lead to Okada, but it's a longer story. And I'm just looking at, the attendance for the G1, it's been disappointing. Like, they need something. And there's certain times when, yes, you build for the future and you're telling a longer story. There's other times you've got to just go and hit something big to spark your audience, to get something going. I'm not saying New Japan is flat, but it's like this G1 has been kind of the least amount of buzz, I would say, for a G1 in years.
Is that so? Even less than the pandemic period?
I mean, I kind of look at those as like outliers, but I would still say yes. Yeah.
For me, I mean, I certainly felt it because I think of how much content that you have to consume in order to keep up with it. And also the abundance of every like competing, product that's out there with AEW and countless others. So I could see that.
Well, I do think Hikuleo, like, it's like, I don't think this guy is going to be the big star a year from now, but I thought his match with Umino was probably his best of the G1. So it's just of all the candidates, this one probably surprised people the most, that he is going to the next round. The B block, it did come down to Okada and Ospreay, as most assumed. But my God, did you see Ospreay and El Phantasmo?
No, it's part of my long list of catch up matches I have to watch.
This might be the match of the tournament. It was phenomenal. It was my double XL if we have to go that route. So that match you have to go see from Sunday's show in Osaka. It was tremendous. Okada beat Tangaloa on the final day, and that you don't have to go out of your way to see. But
I saw some of that. Some of that made its way to Reddit, just specifically of Tangaloa's. Yeah, he's been doing this sort of like, oh man, awful.
It looked bad. I would say the match was not awful, but that alone, out of context, it's well, I mean, in context, even it was not good. I'm not defending the strikes look bad, but it was it was not a memorable match that I would say you have to go see. So on Tuesday, it will come down to the C block, and we have Finlay and Evil, along with Eddie Kingston with 8 points, and then Tama Tonga and Shingo Takagi with 7. So the final day for the C block has Finlay against Kingston, Evil against Shingo, and Tama Tonga against Hanare, who is out of it. So my thought is that we likely end up with the winner of Finlay and Kingston and the winner of Evil and Shingo will move on. There's also a way where there could be Tama and Shingo both ending, if they win their matches, they have 9 each, and they had a draw together. So you could end up with a playoff. But this one is definitely one of the more complex endings, but I don't know if it'll end up being all that complicated.
Who's your pick?
I'm going with Finlay, and I'm gonna I said Tama Tonga at the beginning, but I'll say Finlay and Shingo move on. That's my thought.
All right.
I think Eddie Kingston comes up short in this one. And then the D block will be on Wednesday. Cobb, Naito, and Zach all have 8 points, and all of them are facing guys who are out of it. So you could have some spoilers, and then it's just whoever gets the points will come in first. And so it's Cobb against Shane Haste, Naito against Tanahashi, and Zach against Goto. So Sabre has losses to Naito and Cobb, while Cobb has wins against Sabre and Naito if you get to any need for tiebreakers. I think Cobb he did the 4-0 run, and then he's lost his last 2. I think he's going to continue to fold, and Shane Haste plays spoiler. Shane Haste gets a win here and gets a second big upset in the tournament. And I'm still going with Zach and Naito to advance in the D block. So that's my thought there. And then we get into the playoffs. The playoffs will start on Thursday. So Sonata will take on the second place winner of the C block. Okada faces second place of the D block. Ospreay against the winner of the C block, and Hikuleo against the winner of the D block. As all that makes sense.
It makes total sense, John. But I think I have most of my interest in the E block, because the post wrestling family E block standings in the G1 Climax contest over at postwrestling.com.
What a comeback!
G1.
Okay? This guy was ready to throw in the towel. I think I talked Brandon into having some optimism when he was right near the basement.
Things are really heating up here with Brandon Thurston now as our leader, atop with 63 points. But John Kleinchester is right behind him. Kleinchester has really been, the Sonata of this tournament so far, pretty much, holding that lead for the entire tournament until this last set of events. So we'll see if John Kleinchester can make it in these final events. And then a huge 3-way tie for third place between the Archivist John Cena and Lowdown Davey Portman, while I am in a one-man race towards the bottom with AI Randobot. The two of us just trying to, see who can avoid coming out last. Wish me luck. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'm stuck in the middle there. We'll see if I can catch Marcotte. Maybe even it would be Christmas if I could catch Braden, but that might be out of my reach. This ends with the round robin, correct?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. Well, that will be wrapping up this week. Final notes here. KAIRI it has announced she is taking an indefinite hiatus at the end of September, and that it's a positive decision, while also thanking Rossi Ogawa. So this comes a day after PW Insider's Mike Johnson reports that she is expected back in WWE after leaving. She stopped wrestling in 2020, and then her deal was up at the end of 2021, and then returned to Stardom a few months after that in 2022. She's only 34 years old, so she has definitely had the wear and tear on her body from the years of wrestling, but is certainly young enough that can still have a very significant run in WWE. Do you like this return?
I mean, I do like it, but from what I gathered, her initial reasons for leaving was that she was homesick, and I guess maybe wanted to be closer to her loved ones, and I don't exactly know what would be changing this time around. For her,
she was also wrestling in like empty performance centers and Thunderdomes, so
I'm sure that you're right. That would be a big difference maker. I also wonder how much of this is maybe brought on by Stardom and Bushi Rhodes, it maybe lack of expansion themselves, and maybe lack of resources to put into their Stardom and their women's sort of wrestling divisions as well.
And where she was in the pecking order, like before Mercedes, I mean, she was considered like their big international star, and where does she fit here? But I don't think anyone is talking about the clear X factor, and that's Michael Cole's commentary that she has to clearly believe this would be a different run next time.
Totally.
WWE.
Stardom getting a shout out last night for Io Shirai's a win.
That was a very good call. Like, obviously we couldn't hear the commentary being at SummerSlam, but yeah,
expect the whole rundown of their history together in the promotion. And yeah, I mean, with Io Shirai, of course, on top of the division right now, it's perfect for KAIRI to come in for them to tell those stories. So let's see what they do.
Last thing is the ratings from Friday. SmackDown, not a whole lot to talk about. 2,248,000 viewers and a 0.62 in the demo. Not much change week over week. It wasn't by a lot, but it was their highest 18 to 49 number since July the 7th. 18 to 34 was up 6% with a larger increase among women in that demo. I would say for a go-home show and one without Roman Reigns, I guess staying consistent going into the show. You can't read too much into this number. It was like a standard average SmackDown number at this stage. Rampage, though, had a big increase, 434,000 viewers and a 0.14 in the demo. So their audience was up 34% this week. The demo up 41%, which was their highest since April. And this was all due to men. Men 18 to 49 was basically double from the last week. 18 to 34 men up 131% this week. And men 35 to 49 were up 90%. That was offset by female viewership, where females 18 to 49 were down 21%, women 35 to 49 down 58%. However, women 18 to 34 were up 33%. So the sweet spot for parking lot fights, it's women 18 to 34. And then in the older demo, they did not have time for Sue's van to get demolished in a taped environment. But a very consistent pattern throughout the show in the 18 to 49 demo. If you look at WrestleNomics quarter hours, like there was really no fluctuation. It was all within like 6,000 viewers throughout those 60 minutes of the show. But this is what men want. That's what I took from Friday.
I mean, I was curious. So, do you have the numbers for from Harpo's? Do you have
Listen, they drew very well on Friday. Like one of the wrestlers was telling us, like it was around like 600 tickets sold for Harpo's. So I can't
felt and I smelt each 600 of those GCW fans that night.
Yeah. I don't know if it was 600 that made it to the end. I heard from several that tapped out before the end, including us too.
Yeah.
But there you go. All your news can be found at postwrestling.com, and all of our shows can also be found up on the website and your app of choice. Just search for Post Wrestling, and we are going to have 7 shows on the Post Wrestling Cafe this week, highlighted by 4 G1 shows to wrap up our annual coverage, with shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, yeah. Saturday, and Sunday. There's actually 5 G1 shows this week. My goodness.
Wow. Bonus one just crept in there.
That's right. So yes, you can check out all of those. It will be myself and Wai on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, it is Davey Portman teaming up with Karen Peterson. Thursday, it's going to be myself and Wai. And then Saturday, Wai and I will do the penultimate show. And Sunday's final, it's myself, Karen Peterson, and WH Park. I'm doing this all off the top of my head, so bear with me.
You got it all right.
Also on the cafe this week, we will have the final double shot for at least this run for Dark Side of the Ring, because their season finale is coming up this week. The World According to Marty Jannetty, which I don't think is a subject anyone has asked how the world would fluctuate if it was based on their views.
I'm very interested in this one. This one might have held, my biggest anticipation when they announced the list of subjects, and it's not for great reasons, unfortunately. So we haven't really heard much from Marty in this sort of documentary format or interviews even for quite a while, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it's not too sad.
And final note is that on Wednesday afternoon, too much information in my head. You can check the site. We will have Pollock and Thurston, and David Bixenspan will be on with us this coming Wednesday afternoon. We'll chat about this season of Dark Side of the Ring. We'll talk about the Hogan lawsuit against WCW coming out of Bash at the Beach, and whatever else is going on in the world of news. I'm sure we will be getting into the story that Alex Sherman reported today about Max looking to add sports on the streaming service, mentioning like various live sports properties, but no mention of AEW in his reporting. So we will see if there is anything more to discuss in a couple of days. So lots of stuff coming up this week. Again, postwrestlingcafe.com or video.postwrestling.com is where you can support us. And again, 7 bonus shows coming your way on the cafe, and more to come this month, including a big edition of Talk on the Road with Wai Ting behind the
Talk and Drive.
Talk and Drive, yes, hands-free device. So you can expect that later this month as well. It is time to move on over to tonight's edition of Raw from the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. coming off of SummerSlam. And we start off with our new Raw commentary duo of Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. This change announced over the weekend with Cole and Barrett moved to Raw. And Cole is going to be doing double duty, at least for the time being, with Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves on Friday night SmackDown. And let's just go for the biggest shock here that they have separated Corey Graves and Ludwig Kaiser.
What do you mean? Why is that? Why
after
that
the impression?
Oh man, you're right. I
think we only got one week of it, and now they're gone.
Maybe he got word of it, and then that's why he threw the impression out. You know, this is my last chance. I'm gonna get it out there. Maybe that was it.
I'm saving this for Mania season. No, we're putting it out tonight.
Is Ludwig Kaiser the guy with maybe I don't know, the biggest attachment on the production side of things between Samantha Irvin and Corey Graves, both having very distinctive attachments to him?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of he's getting involved with all the production people.
He is.
The first hour was commercial free. So Cody Rhodes starts the show and talks about Brock Lesnar's history in Minnesota. But Brock was he wasn't nostalgic to come back to Minnesota tonight. And he survived Brock, and they show still shots of the handshake after the match. And Cody talked to his mother, and Cody informed him that Brock Lesnar just acknowledged you.
Yeah, mi madre, he said.
Yes. And he feels on top of the world and that he could beat anyone. So with that, Seth Rollins comes out to call him out on this assertion. They are interrupted by the Judgment Day, although no Finn Balor. So the three are out. They run Raw, and Pre says we dictate what happens with the title. He goes over the championships they hold and says Dominic is not done with Cody yet. Dominic is the workhorse. And then out from the crowd comes Finn Balor, who jumps Rollins. Judgment Day start fighting. Sami Zayn is out. The babyfaces clear the ring, and Rollins is confused as Cody Rhodes issues a challenge for a 6-man tag. Rollins wants nothing to do with Cody, and this would be the tension played out throughout the 3 hours for our main event tonight. The Judgment Day against Rhodes, Rollins, and who else? It was going to be Sami Zayn, but that would change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found this pretty interesting because they aren't even dancing around the fact that Cody doesn't give a shit about Rollins' championship. Like, he says, you know, I'm here to finish the story, and that story only ends by beating Roman Reigns. He basically said it here, which I think is a bit dangerous for several reasons. For one thing, I mean, it undeniably lowers to me the value of Rollins' championship. You know, when you basically have a guy say, I've beaten Brock Lesnar, but I don't want your championship. I want that one. And I think it's also dangerous for Roman because it's going to be hard to buy any of his contenders. We already saw it with Jay last night. You know, anybody that they set up for Roman Reigns is going to be hard to buy into when they are building Cody rightfully, you know, like really strong for a WrestleMania rematch at this point. So will be interesting to see maybe how they you know, change things up because we're still a long ways away from WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least Cody, it's not like he has like 3 wins over Rollins in consecutive pay-per-views or anything that makes it so lopsided.
He has every reason to like want to just claim Rollins' title, but Rollins basically comes out here and he's like, hey, what about me? I'm a champion too. Don't you want this?
Earlier today, Adam Pearce met with Ricochet. He's protesting about the loss to Logan Paul, and he's placed into a 4-way with Chad Gable, Matt Riddle, and Ciampa, with the winner getting an Intercontinental title shot against Gunther. And Gable notes he is in his hometown. And this would be our confirmation that Vince McMahon is on medical leave, the outcome of this match.
Oh, I would say this entire episode kind of felt that way.
Look, you don't think he would have booked this 4-way?
I don't. Yeah. I mean, of these 4, like one of them was
guys. Where's the rest of them? Did they get left at customs? Where's the extra 2 feet?
One of them was Shorty G, like, you know, the other was a guy who got squashed by Brock Lesnar and was just happy to be here. Another guy was in NXT for like what felt like 10 years. And
said, I'm happy to just stay here. I'm good.
Yeah. No, I don't think Vince is back tonight.
Riddle is the one guy that was certainly in better standing in the Vince regime than this one.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a terrific match. It was a 4-way that went 10 minutes. Ricochet climbs, and then Riddle and Ciampa follow. So Gable comes out from underneath with like a triple suplex, sending them off. And this includes Ricochet like rotating from the top of it. It was quite the takeoff. This is a more ambitious Tower of Doom spot. Gunther is watching in the back. Gable uses the ankle lock to Ciampa, and he grabs the rope, but rope breaks don't count in this four-way match. Riddle breaks it up with a knee strike, and we're getting various covers. Ricochet does a springboard and is caught with a knee from Ciampa, who hits the Project Ciampa for a 2 count. There's a Bro Derek, and Gable dives off the top. All 4 men are down, and then Gable continually gets the Chaos Theory thwarted, first by Ricochet, then by Ciampa, before finally hitting the Chaos Theory to Ciampa, and he wins in 10 minutes and 7 seconds. He got a giant pop because he was in his hometown, and then he goes to his family in the front row, lifts up his son, who's in a singlet, and carries him around the ring. Yeah. He destroyed the hometown curse. He destroyed the family at ringside curse of 2023. Man, talk about Shorty G, just overachieving on this night in Minneapolis.
Oh, completely. This felt like the most serious thing Chad Gable's had in years, if ever, on this show. You know, when they made him Shorty G, I thought that was like death, and not.
I think it's still a tough mark on him that I do feel like it's. I don't think he's completely shed that gimmick in terms of his perception to people. I think it was a really damaging character.
I don't disagree. At the same time, like, you're seeing a lot of like fans just like appreciate, even as a comedy character, like his abilities and his talents. I mean, first of all, in ring, but also the catchphrases are over. You know, the Alpha Academy arguably is over strictly as a result of him. So tonight, especially in Minneapolis, they treated him like a star. So just to even see him with this scene holding his child and being taken seriously was a big step in the right direction. I thought the idea of this match was really good. This felt to me like very much a reset of your IC level division, and a match to followed was amazing, and it showed you what the potential should be for your mid-card title division. You know, this is a really strong nucleus of guys like Gable, guys like Ricochet that actually have the crowd's attention behind them, and then you throw in, you know, great talents like Riddle and Ciampa, and the results in ring are going to be really impressive. It felt like there's, you know, like this show overall, I thought did a great job of like reintroducing you to a lot of guys and put the focus on a lot of guys you otherwise might not have taken seriously before.
They didn't make it clear. It was just the winner gets a title shot. And I thought, based on just where they were, that they were going to come back and do this like later in the show in Minneapolis, but they're going to hold it off. I don't know if you get a better reaction for Chad Gable than going for the title here.
It's true. It's true. They want to probably drag this out just to kind of give Gable a little bit more value and just to kind of create more content, right? And he's going to lose, so maybe they want Minneapolis to leave home happy.
Rhodes is with Zayn and Rollins, so Zayn is playing Peacemaker, and he's sick of the Judgment Day. They put his partner on the shelf, and they agree to work together, but Zayn is not convinced. So we have both sets of tag champions out with injuries now. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
They recap Tribal Combat, and this Friday it will be a Hail to the Chief segment. So it's the name of a segment, and those typically draw well, with Roman Reigns and Jimmy scheduled for the show on Friday.
What does that say when like simply titling is like, you know, an automatic, like, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000 viewers?
Do you think the mandatory JAS meeting will have that impact on Wednesday?
I don't know if it works so much with AEW. Could.
The Miz is told that he needs to wait because LA Knight is in the middle of a photo shoot, and the Miz just stormed off saying, "What the hell is the point of this brand split?"
Well, this is a photo shoot. I mean, I don't think it's
at Raw. We're bringing you for a photo shoot.
Well, he's close in town. What is he going to do? Fly back, you know, or like go home and then come back to take photos on Friday? They need the photos for Friday.
What photos do they need for Friday? What do they not have of this man already?
Not in this vest that he was wearing this week.
Shinsuke Nakamura against Bronson Reed. Barrett calls the Tsunami the greatest move in sports entertainment. And Michael Cole, who's just, I'm sure, exhausting his VPN, talked about Shinsuke Nakamura's IWGP title victories in the past.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Back when him and Tanahashi were fighting for the U30 championship. Reed gets sent to the floor and then is knocked into the desk, and there's an avalanche in the center of the ring. They go through the first commercial of the show, and then there's a spin kick by Nakamura. Reed responds with a clothesline, misses the tsunami, and the Kinshasa is hit from behind, then in front. So they emphasize it took 2 Kinshasas for Nakamura to win in 11 minutes and 54 seconds. And if you're puzzled about them beating Bronson Reed in this fashion, there was a reason for it. And that was made very clear, even just to leap Nakamura into the main event. But obviously they are heating up Nakamura in a big way.
Yeah, to be honest, like I think this, like what they were building with Ciampa, Reed, and Nakamura, none of them were really advancing. Like it would sort of felt
this was
felt
the
like
finality to it. Like someone gets a notable win to just come out on top in this program.
So it didn't even feel like Reed lost much by, losing this match against Nakamura. He kind of essentially stays in the same spot. But what they ended up doing with Nakamura after this certainly propelled Nakamura to a higher level. So.
Raquel is still not cleared, but she is close, says Adam Pearce. And she now has friends in Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, who are there by her side.
Yes.
Huge. Have we really explored this friendship prior to tonight on Raw?
Well, you just assume a lot happens off screen. They travel together, probably eat at catering together often.
Maxxine's on the phone, and Ludwig Kaiser walks in and is telling her that Gunther is ready to wipe the floor with Gable, and she has potential. But some people are just better than others, and compares the group that he hangs around versus the group that Maxxine hangs around, calling Otis big and disgusting. And Maxxine slaps him, and then Otis appears and challenges the pretty boy as Ludwig is trying to flirt with Maxxine.
I'm really happy to see Ludwig Kaiser get his own storyline. I mean, up until this point, we've really just seen him as like sort of the second to Gunther, the mouthpiece for Gunther. Now he's getting his own story with Maxxine, it looks like. I mean, they've done a great job of establishing Maxxine as part of the Alpha Academy. I would certainly say she's over and, got, I think, a good deal of attention too, even at Media Day, John, so she's getting her own storyline and now introducing a little bit of tension in the form of like Ludwig Kaiser potentially breaking up and luring her away from Alpha Academy, I think is a wonderful follow-up for the both of them.
I think you certainly see them getting further behind Alpha Academy, acknowledging like the audience that has gotten behind them and now trying to take them to the next level. Becky Lynch comes out. She's been tired for the past months. She's ready to end this with Trish next week and calls it the battle of the greatest of the previous generation against the greatest of this and all future generations, referring to herself. There will be no interference next week. Zoey Stark is banned from ringside. So Zoey comes out and says both her and Trish have beaten you, Becky, and thinks Becky is scared. Becky knows that Stark is gifted, but you've never had to work for anything. You got a free ride from Trish, but Trish is dragging you in the wrong direction and you're playing second fiddle. Stark calls her jealous. She's getting the what chance and says, Trish kicked Becky to the side and chose me. I'm the baddest in the locker room. And this prompts Shayna Baszler to come out with one functioning eye. She just looked wrecked here from this MMA fight with Ronda Rousey. So
yeah,
nothing worse than an injury coming out of that on Saturday.
Well, I mean, it was definitely the most poorly received match on the show. But if you're going to come out of an MMA fight, I mean, what a wonderful injury to have. If you could say that about an injury. So
Shayna, they push her as the first woman to submit Ronda Rousey in her career. So I'm glad they were pushing that aspect that she has a tag, like a tagline to come out of this match with. And just like that, Baszler says, I drove Rousey out of WWE. And after all that seems to be the write-off of Ronda Rousey.
I mean, I think that was sort of the expectation, wasn't it? Like coming off of SummerSlam?
It depends on, I think, who you asked. I would think to the average person, I don't know if that was necessarily clear going in. But yeah, that was it.
And she got thank you, Shayna chance.
Yeah. And she asks Stark who the baddest woman in the locker room is. And Stark calls Shayna the baddest punching bag and threatens to send her home. Becky suggests they fight, and Adam Pearce runs out to make it official because he had nothing booked for the next 15 minutes. Finn Balor.
His rundown was very thin for this episode, honestly.
Sometimes you just got to let things breathe on the show. He has a commercial-free hour, and stuff just it'll come together. These are professionals.
I thought this segment was a good test for both Zoey and Shayna Baszler, to be able to come out and handle a lot of talking here on a segment like this. And Zoey in particular, I thought her delivery was really strong. She had good confidence. They gave her what chance, and she was not thrown off by them. She plowed through them and finished the segment. Didn't seem shaken by it. And I definitely think if this was meant to be any sort of test, I would definitely say she passed. I think Shayna sounded all right too. There's coming off of some poor reviews off of Saturday. I think it was really important for her to just come out and basically no sell it and just act as if, hey, this was a big moment. I eliminated Ronda Rousey from the division, and I thought her confidence seemed just as strong as ever as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see in a month or two where Shayna Baszler is, but at least this night one after this win from Ronda, she was featured on the show, and they tried to put over this win, so that's encouraging. Finn Balor went to the Lost and Found at the Target Center and located JD McDonagh, and Priest walks in to talk, and Balor says, whatever you can say to me, you can say to JD. I've known him for 20 years. Up until 6 weeks ago. Then we lost touch. And he asks why Balor didn't come out with them tonight. And then you jumped Rollins. You didn't tell us what your plan was. And they argue over SummerSlam, being on different pages. And Priest says, even with my help, you lost. Balor says, well, maybe it's because of you that I lost. And things are getting tense between them as Rhea comes in and tells them to act like men. These two, their egos out of control. About
I think they are acting like men.
They're kind of acting like stereotypical men here, and says the Priest was there to help him and it didn't work. You need to be on the same page. And JD says, might not be my place to speak, but it seems that briefcase is coming between you. You should get rid of it. It's throw it over a bridge or something.
Or did he mean get rid of it by cashing it in? I mean, Priest took offense to it, so maybe it was just more like throwing it away. I don't know, but
what if he came out and just laid down in the middle of the ring because Finn Balor's been playing politics all day. Wait a minute, this wasn't on our format sheet.
And then who comes out later on in the show to cut the promo?
Bruce Pritchard.
That would be great. Just wonderful. Hey, I thought this was what?
Hey, Fergal. We'll be calling each other by our real names as well by this point, right?
Very nice. Yeah. It's going to make no sense to people who haven't been.
It didn't make sense to people who were watching the Bash at the Beach.
Very true. Very true. Hey, I thought this was a really good quality segment. Okay. It spelled out clearly for somebody who might have watched SummerSlam and wasn't necessarily watching the storyline beforehand. It told you exactly the narrative behind the finish of Saturday's match. Priest and Rhea both claim that, their intentions were to help Balor, but Balor has very justifiable reason to believe otherwise. And I think they, coming off of Saturday, have created a really good misunderstanding story between the two of them that continues to further this wonderful tension. I'm treating this as JD McDonagh's proper introduction to this main roster, because whatever he was doing before was clearly not well thought out and completely meaningless to what he's doing today. This was good. They gave us the relationship between he and Finn Balor. They've known each other for 20 years, and he's acting, I hope, as a bit of a wedge between, Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And I think with this little line in the end, I'm hoping for further interaction with him in a way that makes it seem like he's manipulating Finn Balor to leave the Judgment Day, which I think would be wonderful for JD McDonagh, because it's not that he's no longer in sort of a rookie role. Like, he's not the understudy of the Judgment Day, which maybe a lot of us thought he would be. So I hope they further this.
Yeah. It's a life raft for McDonagh that can now play more of a role in this. Zoey Stark and Shayna Baszler. So Becky is out drinking lemonade. We now understand why. Stark goes after. They list off Baszler's injuries. She's got the busted up eye, as well as injuries to her cheek, elbow, and thumb.
Ouch! Wow,
that's rough. Stark hit a springboard missile dropkick. They went through the break, and there's a springboard, and Shayna catches her in the Kirifuda, but Stark sends her out of the ring, and she gets into Becky's face as she's seated there. And then Stark gets onto the apron. She's what I would call semi-distracted. Like, the Like there was a gust of wind and she took a look at it behind her and then turns around and she's kneed by Baszler. And then Shayna struggled to get her up on her shoulders. And on the third try gets her up. And she has now taken the Piper's Pit move from Ronda. And it is now the world's baddest slam.
I don't know if that was an ad lib from Cole. I certainly hope it was, because that's a terrible name for
the most grammatically incorrect finisher in WWE, and wins it in 11:48. This was too, like, I know when it's a WWE naming thing, and this was definitely one of them. I think we are getting the world's world's baddest slam.
It's a playoff of like the Mark Henry name, I suppose. I still think it's so goofy for a character like Shayna Baszler's, which, you know, should really kind of be based in reality. Just call it Piper's Pit. Why not? Like, if you're gonna, you know, pull it and steal it from Ronda or pay tribute to Ronda. WB. I don't know if that sounds any better. Unfortunate screw up at the end here. And crowd engagement for this match was pretty low, as it tends to be for a lot of the women's matches when you're not Rhea Ripley or Becky Lynch. But I thought this was an overall like positive segment, or series of segments for both of these two. You know, you had Zoey Stark, especially, who I felt basically played Shayna's role here. She was targeting Shayna's arm and even doing some of her moves. Her offense looked great. Her intensity was really strong. That, coupled with her promo, it makes me feel like she's really graduated from this like Trish association, which by all accounts will probably be over after next week. And I think
they've got to have Zoey in a featured spot. Like, this whole Trish association, she's got to be able to stand on her own after Trish. And they're, you know, I see a lot of promise in Zoey Stark.
Yeah, I think in terms of skill, she's there. She just needs the story. She needs the crowd behind her, you know, and she's proven that I think the talent's there. Shayna, like, was treated like a babyface tonight. Certainly a whole lot more than she was on Saturday, when people weren't really treating her as anything. So it was nice to hear her like get some Shayna chants. She was wrestling as a babyface. It was a little bit awkward to see her like pump up the crowd and kind of do your traditional like babyface movements. It doesn't feel that it's so much in character, but at least in commentary was building her up as well for like being, you know, having a gutsy performance. So at least we have a direction now. At least I think we do, of like, you know, how we should be feeling about Shayna Baszler.
Saxton is with Nakamura, and Nakamura says he's tired of people getting in his way. And Saxton does sorry, we have something more important than you happening, and runs around the corner where JD McDonagh has laid out Sami Zayn. And apparently, Sami Zayn ingested a golf ball that tried to exit through his elbow. And this elbow, did you see what was coming out of this dude's elbow? Can you zoom in on this?
I could see it now. Yeah. I mean,
oh my God.
Was this, is this an actual injury, or is this not just his elbow? I can't zoom in. I'm sorry.
It's, if you see it, it looks like some giant like fluid buildup or something in it. For all I know, I don't know if this is something new. It could just be something he's just been dealing with. I mean, he wrestled last week, but if you see this elbow, it looked grotesque what was coming out of his elbow.
Holy shit, you're right. Wow. Oh, yeah. Here's a close up. What the fuck?
This thing was very you know, that's that doesn't look like a normal elbow. That was my observation.
Well, I mean, it was really good follow-up for JD McDonagh to be able to take credit for this golf ball.
He can do his crazy promos from NXT about dissecting the body and going after the man's elbow.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this seems like they're directly injecting him, if not into the Judgment Day story, then directly opposed to Sami Zayn. So it gives him something.
I hope they're injecting something into Sami Zayn to relieve some of that.
Yeah, dejecting it. Is that what you call it?
Well, to
take the fluid out. Okay. Ejecting it. Okay, whatever. I will say this is certainly a much better introduction for JD McDonagh than a feud with Dolph Ziggler, which would have firmly put him into, you know, dark match territory. Sami Zayn needs something to do, and he's a, you know, top guy, so good for him.
His time on Raw would have been won in McDonagh. Otis against Ludwig Kaiser was next. This is when it clicked for me that we're not going to get Corey Graves calling a Ludwig Kaiser match for a long time. Though it's the brand split, so he could be calling his match on Friday for all we know.
Oh yeah.
They explain that Chad Gable is not in the corner because he won the 4-way, so he gets an Intercontinental title shot down the road. Like, pardon me? He's not in the corner because he won a match 2 hours ago for a title shot that will be at minimum 7 days from now, if not longer, down the road. And thus he is busy at this time.
Well, I mean, maybe the man likes his long showers.
I wish they could just say, you know what? I think if Chad Gable wants to come out again tonight, he should do it on his own so he gets another pop in Minnesota. That's his thinking here.
Yeah, well, that's what he did.
The crowd was into Otis. He's no selling the punches. And then Maxxine gets on the apron, argues with Kaiser. So Otis attacks. Avalanche. He teases the Caterpillar. But Vinci gets onto the apron, is thrown in. And then Gunther shows up and just boots Otis. And this referee, clearly influenced by Marty Asami, misses all of this. And Kaiser wins in 3 minutes and 2 seconds, pinning Otis. Post-match attack leads to Gable running down and faces off with Gunther. Big chant for Gable. And that match, they did not announce it for next week, but down the road.
Down the road, yeah.
Which would be the opposite of Winnipeg. Where they are next
That's
week.
where they are next week.
Yes.
Well, when you say down the road, that means I think they were speaking about time, not so much distance, right?
You know, I looked this up. So Gunther will get this Intercontinental title record like first week of September.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have one episode of Raw between now and then in Memphis. And if you're going to do anything with Honky Tonk Man, like that's the Raw to do it on.
Oh my God.
In a couple of weeks. So I'm not saying a match with the guy, but I mean, like you're beating this guy's record.
Is he on good terms with the WWE?
Yeah. He had been, once he went into the Hall of Fame, he seemed to be.
Right. They've got to.
What do you do with Gunther and Honky Tonk Man? I don't know what you do with them, but I want to see.
What do you not do with Gunther and Honky Tonk Man? Come on. Any interaction between the two would be marvelous.
Maybe Kaiser tries to sing and then Honky Tonk Man comes out and shows him how to do it. We get a duet between Kaiser and Honky Tonk Man.
It's too perfect.
Yeah, it's too goofy a record that, or too goofy a holder of this record is for Gunther to surpass that. It's just like, it'd be one thing if this was like, oh, Ricky Steamboat holds the record, but it's like the Honky Tonk Man after all these years.
But it's more so the length of it that's impressive, right? Like length that is legitimately difficult to reach.
Yeah. Different quality of title run that Gunther had from Honky Tonk Man, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how many classics old HTM had. Jackie Redmond is with Rhodes and Rollins, and it's going to be 2-on-3 when Nakamura comes in and he volunteers to join. And Rollins, he's always respected Nakamura, but it's taken him years to tell him this to his face. So he says, sure, you're in. And just like that, Nakamura's in the main event. Miz comes out. He complains about the lack of respect in the locker room. When he joined WWE, he was taught respect. You come in, you shake hands with the elders. When you enter, LA Knight never shook hands. I was like, I love this Miz heel character.
Love this.
He's the salty veteran that just wants the industry to be the way it used to be. And says LA Knight did not shake his hand. I'm sick of people showing a lack of respect from this crop of new talent. So yes, folks, this is a 42-year-old Miz browbeating a 40-year-old rookie. LA Knight.
I mean, 10 years says a whole lot, doesn't it? Like, yeah, anyway. In Japan, this would somehow make sense.
Knight comes out, and he thought he made a great introduction to him in the Battle Royal. The crowd yells his name, and Miz turns down a handshake when Knight offers it. Miz says he's seen these guys try to ride his coattails, and Miz says, if you strip away my charisma, my talent, my hot wife, you know what you get? You get LA Knight, just an attitude era fanboy cosplaying in the ring.
Great line.
Oh, Kevin Nash is spear. He was cosplaying Kevin Nash here. That's the funny part.
What, with a vest?
No, this was Kevin Nash's criticism of LA Knight.
What do you mean it was cos? Oh, you mean Miz was cosplaying Kevin Nash? Okay.
Miz is just taking Kevin Nash's.
To be fair, it's a lot of people's criticisms of LA Knight.
He gets a tiny balls reference here. And then Knight says Miz doesn't want to make this personal. Miz says, I do take this personally. This is my career. He goes over all he's done in 20 years. What have you been doing for 20 years? And Knight comes back and says, I've been scratching and clawing for 20 years while WWE's been betting on all the wrong horses like you. Mm-hmm. I've been on a parallel path, but a rockier one while you got a head start here in this company because you're safe. And they could toss you out of the locker room because you'd take it. They didn't take a chance on me because I'm a dangerous man. And I'm not one to get messed up with. And he says he's on the rise while your career is in the toilet. And he got a bit tongue-tied here, but recovered. And he's going to use Miz as a stepping stone to go to the main event. Miz screams, "I'm not a stepping stone." And as Knight goes to challenge him, Miz hits him with a cheap shot, but then it's a skull-crushing finale that gets stopped, and Knight ends it with the blunt force trauma onto the Miz. A really entertaining segment that these two had.
Oh, I thought this was an outstanding segment. I don't think you could have asked for more from a Miz segment in 2023. I thought it was a wonderful follow-up to LA Knight's Battle Royal win, and what really felt like I think a pretty like his biggest weekend, certainly, during his WWF run, probably his entire wrestling career. This was also an introduction for LA Knight to a WWE Raw audience on a different network, and for people that already know LA Knight, a reintroduction with him as now a guy with the company's rocket strapped to his back.
We got both Duprees on Raw.
I think
brother and sister reunited.
I think he's disowned that name, but you're right. They can reunite at some point. They're making the family proud. I thought they found a great way to like draw association between Miz and LA Knight. Miz as the guy who, plays grumpy veteran, upset at these sort of like, young up and comers not shaking his hand, which I think is just hilarious reason to get mad at somebody. But
that was the whole Booker T deal with the Bucks.
Well, countless others that we probably didn't even know about. But it's just like it sounds so stupid that it makes for wonderful heel like logic to hate somebody, right? I think also like you're just an Attitude Era fanboy cosplaying in my ring is a great line that again feels pulled from reality for real criticisms of LA Knight. And I thought Knight's comeback, even though it was going to be a lot more difficult to come up with, I thought they gave you something great here. He says they didn't choose me because they couldn't make me the company's lapdog like they did you, basically. I've been doing everything I can to get here while this place has been betting on all the wrong horses. You being one of them is I think an ether level 9 line from LA Knight that just completely reduces the Miz's accomplishments to nothing. Again, pulled from reality. Yes, a little bit on the sort of like work shoot scale, but I think it still works in the context of, a pro wrestling promotion that favors like, one guy by putting him in certain spots. So ultimately you got a really high level showcase of LA Knight's charisma, his ability to, again, be confident and his great delivery. And you had the Miz here, I think, in almost like at his best, in sort of his talking smack form. So huge kudos to the both of them, including the writers, whoever came up with this. And I continue to be like, the Miz deserves his like plenty of appreciation as like a guy who continues to feel like one of the most selfless people to just kind of play like welcome mat, for any new person that they're debuting and doing a great job at it.
This is the like match equivalent of like coming in and you just get like you're there to get the other guy over and put his finisher over, in this case like a catchphrase, or it just be you are there to be the stepping stone. And he's a very unselfish performer, and that's consistent with Mike Mizanin. That's what this segment needed.
Real name.
Listen, Sean. Listen, Sean Ricker.
Yeah.
Viking Raiders and Valhalla. They issue an open challenge for a team to be sacrificed to the gods.
Yeah, typical reason to start a wrestling match.
They're going to the Bible. Viking Raiders against the returning New Day. Kofi Kingston is back from his ankle surgery with Xavier Woods. So, good match here that they had for the time they had. It led to a hot tag to Kingston, who made his comeback on Ivar, hit the boom drop, and then hit an SOS for a 2 count. Eric's in with the knee, and then Kingston uses a Rana to send Eric out. Trouble in Paradise to Ivar, followed by the limit break from Xavier with the elbow off the top and pins Ivar in 540. So the New Day win, and then they run into Jackie Redmond backstage. Thought the sacrifice to the gods was a pretty odd challenge that they accepted, and they're here to inject positivity, and they're going for the tag titles. They have sat down and said, what are we missing? Tag title run. So they are going for them against now's the time to strike because both champions are hurt.
Well, who would they face, I guess?
No one. Owens and Zayn are one's storyline hurt, one's real hurt, and Maybe they're going for Tony D'Angelo and Stax.
Maybe those tag titles, yeah. Didn't they go after them? Didn't they go after the NXT titles?
They did, yes, with Pretty Deadly.
Right. They won? Did they win? Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm really hoping that this New Day return is a chance for them to give them a bit of a refresh. Just even in terms of personality, or like in terms of like obstacle.
Whether you like the New Day or not, dude, they are identical. Like they are going to be the exact same, and they were here. Like this is the act. This is how they are, and there's
been no advancement. I mean, just even dating back to like Kofi Mania, there's been zero character growth. They lost one of their members, and we've seen zero.
He's been bottling it. He's going to address the title loss.
We've been waiting. Yeah, remember the crushed cookie or whatever? Yeah, we're still waiting for that moment. I mean, I understand. I understand the gimmick is like, the power of positivity and that like nothing should phase them. That doesn't mean you can't like. Why do I care to watch you? If like nothing's gonna bother you, if you're not gonna sell anything, like what lesson am I learning here by watching you? Like, what are you overcoming for me to like want to cheer for you to win? And I for all I know, they could be setting up something very different for them. But I've been kind of proven wrong, and I've been disappointed in the past with the lack of growth of the New Day. So I don't know. Another 16th title reign, or what are we at now? What are they after?
Oh, they're going for 30. I think that's it.
All right.
Saxton met with Becky, and she gets interrupted by Shayna, who is coming for the man. And Becky says, "Great, I'm looking forward to it." So we already have our next program lined up after Trish.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I mean, it looks like Shayna's a babyface, but it also doesn't mean she can't go after our favorites as well.
I can't do another like deciphering. Shayna is Shayna. Okay, that's how we're gonna go with this from now on. Judgment Day comes out for the main event, and then Raquel, not cleared, jumps Rhea Ripley. Candice and Indy, her best friends, are out, and they hold Raquel back. And then Candice and Rhea are fighting, so not good for the future of Candice LeRae. She's probably going to get decimated next week. Mm-hmm. Main event is Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, and Shinsuke Nakamura against Dominic, Damian Priest, and Finn Balor. The crowd is chanting Dom's a loser. They had the heat on Rollins. They go through a second commercial break, and again, Dom is beating on Rollins after a cheap shot from Rhea on the floor. Rollins stops the three amigos, and they get the big hot tag for Cody, who's in. Balor stops at Crossroads, avoids the Cody cutter, and then Cody lands a super kick, or Rollins lands a super kick, and they hit a Cody cutter. Save is made by Dominic, and then the Crossroads to Balor gets stopped when Priest nails Rhodes with the briefcase from the floor. Sami Zayn jumps the guardrail and attacks Damian Priest, sends him over the desk, and it's a super kick by Rollins that knocks the briefcase into Balor's face. Crossroads for the win as Cody pins Balor in 14 minutes and 44 seconds. Zayn has the elbow wrapped up, so that is the target from JD McDonagh. And as the four are standing in the ring, they're celebrating. They're on the corners. They're, loud. And then Nakamura is sick of this, and he takes out Rollins with the Kinshasa, and he walks off looking pissed. So Nakamura and Seth Rollins is our title program coming out of SummerSlam.
Yeah, and this too, I don't know if you necessarily consider it a heel turn, because I don't even know, like Nakamura's sort of been flirting with like being a heel anyway as part of like the whole Ciampa Reed thing. So this, for all we know, he could turn back into quote unquote babyface like after this. And
I took this as I think this is the heel route for him that and it solidified his end with Bronson Reed, because now that you've done this turn, there's not really that dynamic to do that match.
He will certainly be a heel against Seth Rollins, but I mean, this is also the type of like thing they can excuse as him simply wanting to, he's been driven to these actions, right? Because people have been fucking with his like matches the whole time. Now he's taking things into his own hands. I think it's a great direction, for Nakamura versus Rollins. They kind of misdirected you, right? All episode they were kind of teasing Cody versus Rollins, even though Cody has expressed zero interest in wanting to win Rollins championship. That's clearly beneath him. But instead, they gave us Nakamura versus Rollins at the end, and I felt pretty satisfied here with the way that they've advanced, Nakamura on this episode. I was very satisfied throughout the entire episode with, I think, advancements for a lot of people. Number one, you had your kind of big players coming off of SummerSlam getting really good follow-up here in LA Knight. Shayna Baszler, I thought, got something good here. And then you had people like Gable, Nakamura, JD McDonagh on the show, Ludwig Kaiser, even Raquel and Rhea, all getting something very significant on the show. So everything on this episode felt very well, felt like it had purpose.
You can see a lot of programs coming out of this, a mixture of what you could extend to Payback versus what they do on television over the next couple of weeks on top of that, because they have a few Canadian dates, both for Raw and SmackDown coming up over the next 2 weeks. You've got Raw next week in Winnipeg, and then they've got a Quebec City Raw, which should be red hot. That crowd is going to be so hot in Quebec City.
Wow, and both Quebecers might be off.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine they'd be off the show completely. There's nothing stopping them from putting them on the show.
Hopefully the Zayn thing is just like some sort of weird fluid thing, and he can come back. So it's what, 2 weeks?
That's in 2 weeks in Quebec City. Yeah. And then they're
Well,
doing SmackDown in Calgary this week, and then Toronto the next week, which is Edge's celebration deal.
right.
So,
Well,
there you go.
yeah. I mean, I thought this was a really good edition of Raw, actually. Well written and with a lot of purpose. Coming off of SummerSlam, a lot of good.
Where do you see
character
Cody
building.
going for the immediate future? They didn't give a big hint here. I could see him challenging like Damian Priest for the briefcase.
I can too. Yeah. Maybe you don't even have to put the briefcase on the line. Like Cody just has to come up with some other motivation for how this is a part of like finishing his story. I guess
he pinned Balor here. It seems as though that would be. I don't know if there's as much juice for a Balor Cody program as there would be Priest. I just like the briefcase. Like it's another thing. Like it gives a reason why Cody isn't going for the title. It's sort of an issue that also has a value if he can get this briefcase.
It also allows him to challenge any champion, and it would be a direct path to Roman. So I like that idea a lot if they decide to go there.
Okay, well that was Raw, and yes, as you mentioned, a lot of interesting directions and where you can see things going for Raw. What did you think about? I mean, Cole and Barrett. You hear them every Friday. Do you like these changes, or are they kind of just it's the same teams, just different nights?
Pretty lateral, with the exception of like, I guess you would assume like Cole. Do you think Kevin Patrick would still be lead on SmackDown?
We're gonna see. They seem to have
in the
like
past,
really
Cole
kind of gotten away from the 3-man teams that I don't know how that one's going to work, because you would think like Kevin Patrick is there to be groomed to be a better play-by-play announcer. And if Cole is just doing all the heavy lifting, how's Kevin Patrick benefiting versus just being in that confusing third person role where I'm not quite play-by-play, I'm not the analyst, and competing with Cole and Graves is going to be difficult for him. Like they have that natural rapport and are the A team, really, like Cole and Graves. That's their pay-per-view team. I don't know how Patrick fits in there, and I don't know. Obviously, like they have not given up on him because he's there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a move that I feel like maybe reasons might reveal themselves a bit later on. Otherwise, it's a bit lateral. I will say I do prefer Barrett and Cole, even to like Graves and Cole. I think Barrett is really good at just simply like doing his job without necessarily like drawing too much attention to himself. I think he's very dependable and has like ascended the ranks like pretty quickly for a good reason.
All right, if you have any super chats, you are welcome to drop them in, and we will get to those before the end of the show. We also have some feedback up on the forum.
Let's go to forum.postwrestling.com.
Jermaine from Chicago. Hope you two are refreshed from a long Detroit weekend. I was looking forward to this Raw because I like the Raw after pay-per-view that introduced new programs. I really like Wade Barrett from his NXT days, and wow, is he an upgrade for me on Raw. I'm all in on Chad Gable working with Gunther. Should be a good match. I think that WWE should adjust its man-on-woman violence. Hear me out. It looks so fake to me when Dominic is watching his girl get attacked and does nothing. I think that they should allow for him to pull Rodriguez off of Ripley. No one would be outraged. I mean, they don't have a rule against contact. I mean, I just
they've done this sort of thing in the past.
Like a pull apart. I don't think they have any issue with that. Seth versus Nakamura is okay for me, just for some variety. With Kevin Owens hurt and now Sonya Deville out, WWE tag divisions are in shambles. Sonya's been through a lot. Get healthy soon, and you two have a great week. Well, thanks, Jermaine. You too.
Thanks, Jermaine. Yeah, in both cases, I wonder how they'll follow up. I mean, I don't see them retiring the tag titles. I do hope this is should be a way for them to be able to refresh the division. Maybe you get double tournaments,
Owens is also not gone for like it's a rib injury. It's like it's not like this guy's going to be out for 9 months. Whereas Sonya Deville, if it is in fact a full tear, like that's 6 to 9 months. It's a different circumstance.
Okay, let's go to Muggin, who says Nakamura worked double duty and he launched himself into the world title picture. It's going to take work to make him credible again, but as we've seen with Finn Balor, it's possible. A lot of talent resurfacing like Indy and Candice popping back up and being utilized. It appears to me that any creative plans that were nixed by the old man are getting picked back up again, which bodes well before football season starts. Chad Gable had a dope night. The four-way match was strong, and it was nice to see him celebrate with his son. Becky swigging lemonade during the Stark and Baszler was hilarious. It's a popular drink, and it still is. Work the gang star. LA Knight's momentum continues to pick up steam. He and The Miz had a damn good promo. Agreed.
What was the better child cameo of the last few days? Chad Gable's son tonight on Raw, or Christian Cage's daughter on Collision, which was hilarious.
I would say Christian Cage's daughter. Yeah.
This was the girl that Jungle Boy hid behind on Dynamite last week. And then on Saturday, I don't think they called this out, but I think everyone pieced it together that this was Christian's daughter.
I don't know if we're even supposed to know that. Like, I think
you're very much supposed to know. They're not hitting you over the head with it, but I think they very much want you to make that connection.
So you think this is all set up for Christian joining back up with Jack Perry?
I don't know if that's the end result, but I think there's certainly. I don't think that was done for.
I just think she was just supposed to be an extra in the Jack Perry scene, but we'll see. Yeah, this is all set up for her like big debut 20 years from now, going up against -1. I'm sure
she was excellent. Like if you watch her face during Christian's promo, like she just looks like I'm being held hostage here, and then Christian tries to kick her out of the arena. It was so funny. All right. Coming up on Tuesday, we have 2 shows coming your way. The G1, it is the final night of the C block with Eddie Kingston against David Finlay, Evil against Shingo Takagi, Tama Tonga against Aaron Hanare, and Tomohiro Ishii taking on Mikey Nichols. So wait, did you give us your pick? Who are going to be the 2 that advance in the C block?
C block, I think it'll be David Finlay, and I'm gonna go with Evil. Sorry.
Okay. And Evil, I would not shock me if he moved on. And then Tuesday night, Davey and Braden, they are also back from Detroit. They will be chatting NXT, which is highlighted by Dominic Mysterio against Dragon Lee for the North American title. Rey Mysterio will be in Dragon Lee's corner. They've also announced Braun Breaker against Von Wagner, Tyler Bate against Noam Dar, Trick Williams against Ilya Dragunov, Axiom versus Mustafa Ali, Blair Davenport versus Kalani Jordan, and Ivy Nile taking on Kiana James. So that's happening. And Dynamite Wednesday night, we have Jack Perry against RVD for the FTW title, Hikaru Shida versus Anna Jay for the women's title, the Young Bucks against the Hardys, Penta and Phoenix against Moxley and Claudia. Dude, the BCC are just go every single week. Yeah. MJF and Adam Cole appear, and the mandatory meeting for the JAS.
Bigger question is what matches get announced for All In or All Out?
Yeah, you have 2 pay-per-views in 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
I mean,
that it?
I mean, a week apart from each other. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's what you.
Yeah.
Well, how many weeks are we? We got. Well, how many Dynamites do we have? 1, 2, 3. We got 3 Dynamites before All In.
Yeah. So, there we go. That's going to wrap it up for us. Thanks to everyone that checked out any of our shows and interviews and whatnot over the weekend. And if we got to see any of you, it was great to run into you in Detroit. You can still catch our SummerSlam review. It's up on the site. And I never get tired of people that comment stating it's great to see you 2 together in person. Like, this is our only interaction way. It's through this digital. Maybe I've got to go. Like, I need to do a bit where I can like come into the screen or something.
It does happen from time to time. I mean, listen, it's really late. Like, we much prefer, just doing this from the comfort of our own homes when it's this late. But trust us, we do see each other in person from time to time.
All right. Well, for Way, I'm John. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back about 48 times this week. Goodbye.